First we may have, yeah, I'll tell the stories. Here is Beach Cemetery. Firstly, something about the cemeteries. As you know, Gallipoli campaign finished in 1915, and the first grave commission came to Gallipoli in 1919. It means from 1915 to 1919, these graves were lying under the wooden crosses. But 4 years was a very long period for a wooden cross. When the commission members came here, they saw some of the wooden crosses were mixed, some of them lost, so the bodies, the graves of the soldiers lost. Now it was impossible to identify them because when they died, their name tags taken by the officer. At that time they were just bodies, bones, skulls, skeletons. So what they do, they decide to put these headstones for the soldiers whose wooden cross were standing, or whose graves was found by commission, or whose names were written in the special war records. Sometimes they couldn't find the body, but the war record saying that he buried there. They put a headstone for him anywhere in the cemetery by writing "Belute buried in the cemetery." Maybe under his headstone, maybe near a stone, but over the same area. From 1919 to 1934, Allied completed almost all the cemeteries. So today, 31 cemeteries and memorials belong to Allied. Commonwealth War Graves Commission maintaining them, but there are Turkish gardeners who work for Commission 5-6 times in a week. They are coming and cleaning these areas. Today, which cemetery you go, you can see all of them like that in good condition, because also Turkish people paying enough attention and respect to your ancestors as their own ancestors. Here is Beach Cemetery. Because of its location near the main base, here is the south end of ANZAC Corps. Our next stop is ANZAC Corps. Because of its location near the main base, the graves represents a wide cross section of servicemen. These who lost their lives on the beach. It also contains many mortally wounded soldiers' graves, because one of the biggest hospitals of ANZAC was located near the cemetery. Beach Cemetery is famous with John Simpson, the man with the donkey, legend in your countries, this man. Do you know where is he from? He's from England. Who's from England? Anyone? Do you know the town South Shields, northeast of England? South Shields. He's from there. Then how he became a legend in Australia and New Zealand. His interest started animals in his early childhood. He was working in a farm and providing children donkey ride for 1 penny. In 1909, his father died. One day later, he answered the call of the sea and began to sail all the world. In 1910, he reached Australia. But when he came to Australia, he and dozens of others there were cleared out. He began to work hard to turn back home to England. 4 years, he lived in different parts of Australia but couldn't find any chance to go back home. When the war broke out in 1914, he decided to join the army, because at that time the army would train in England, in his home. Yes, at first they would do the training in England, but seeing a growing number, army went to Egypt for training, and he went to Egypt. And he was between the first landers 25th of April morning. He landed near that spot. 1 day later, he established himself an independent unit. He found a donkey and began to carry wounded soldiers from valleys, trench to here. While he was going up, he was carrying fresh water for others, turning back, carrying wounded soldiers. In a short time, he became a family sight. Also, the Turks knew about him and it never touched on him. Nearly 25 days period he served here, and during this period, he carried nearly 300 wounded soldiers with his donkey. It means 300 times he went to the Valley of Death. Later I'll show you Sharapna Valley. and 300 soldiers' lives saved by him. But unfortunately, he lost his life on the 19th of May 1915 during the biggest counterattack of Turkish army. Nearly 40,000 Turkish soldiers joined this attack, and the machine guns were in everywhere, so one of these bullets came to Simpson. According to legend, when he was shot by a machine gun, he was still on his donkey. His donkey Murphy or Duffy carried John to here, but when he arrived, it was too late, he already died. After he died, he recommended for the Victoria Cross. Do you know Victoria Cross? The highest degree in the army, but not single act of heroism could be isolated for him. Years after the war, in 1967, Australian Governor General Lord Casey, he was the first lieutenant here during the campaign, later to become Australian Governor General, he presented his sister with the first ANZAC commemorative medallion. And his donkey, Murphy, got Purple Cross by the Parliament, but he couldn't have any medallion. Now they have a statue in Canberra in Australian War Memorial Garden. Maybe he couldn't take any VC or other medallions, but because of his actions, today we still speak about him. And he is much more famous than the Victoria Cross soldiers. For example, do you know any soldier who got Victoria Cross from Gallipoli campaign? Do you know John Simpson? Okay, when we go along fine, I will also tell you some of the stories of the soldiers who got VC at Gallipoli. In Australia, young generation started to love Gallipoli with the stories of John Simpson. In Turkey, young generation started to love the Gallipoli story with Purple Safe Statue. I was one of them. In New Zealand, could you hand up my New Zealand guesses? Okay, how do you start to love Gallipoli? With which stories? Sorry? And how you start to love Gallipoli stories?
How do we learn it?
Yeah.
Like, how do we start to learn it? Like, it's all a movie, I think.
Like poetry?
Okay, maybe you heard about the Lieutenant Colonel William Malone. William Malone was the most famous commander of New Zealand Army. Why I ask this question? Because in also New Zealand Army, there are some heroes like John Simpson, like the others, but we don't know whom they are. Last year, I started a big project. I am trying to find the names of the soldiers who were real heroes, but we don't know whom they are. And the first name which I found was James Henderson. Have you heard about before? James Henderson was the man with the donkey of New Zealand Army. Like Simpson, from beginning till evacuation, he always carried wounded soldiers with his donkey. More than 1,000 wounded soldiers carried with him, but because he survived the war, he wasn't famous as John Simpson. Unfortunately, this is the fate of war. If you lose your life, you're being popular. If not much people remember about you. So when you go your countries, and if you learn any other soldiers' name who were real heroes, please send me their name. I can do some research and share it with my guesses here. In also Turkish army, there was a man with a donkey. His name was Saka Hüseyin. Saka is the people who carry fresh water for others with his donkey. One day, while Saka Hüseyin was carrying fresh water for his Turkish friends, he lost his way. Wrongly came to an ANZAC trench. ANZAC soldier captured him and commander asked him, "Hey man, where are you? What's your business here?" He thought if he said the truth, he gonna die there. So he said, "My commander sent you some fresh water for your wounded soldiers. This for you." ANZAC commander didn't want to believe him at first, but they really needed water. It was nearly impossible to find fresh water in Gallipoli because all the water sources on the side of Turks. From where ANZAC soldiers obtained the water, the close address, like behind of you, 20 miles, Imroz Island. Imroz Island was a Turkish island before Balkan Wars. When Greece captured in 1913, all fleet allied as a base. ANZAC soldiers' main base was that island. Later in 1923, it became again Turkish island. Today, biggest Turkish island, Gökçeada. The other address for water was Lesbos Island, 100 miles on that side. The other address was Egypt, 36 hours away from here. So they really needed water. Then as a commander wanted him to taste some water. It came poisonous. He said, no problem, drank the water. Then as a commander belted him, thanked him, gave him some chocolate biscuit with small presents, sent him to strange back. It's possible, it was gentleman's war. But when he turned back to his Turkish range, his Turkish commander punished him. Why? Because he lost the water. Sometimes water much more important than a soldier's lives in Gallipoli. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, now I will show you Johnstons grave. Then 10 minutes we are here. Then we'll go ANZAC by bus. Bir şekilde işte. Ben işim biliyorum yani oraya drone geliyorum. Küçük yer alışınca öyle gelirsin. Ne fark etmez mi? Ben zaman koyuyorum ya. Ya şimdi serbest olsan abi. many mortally wounded soldiers' graves, because one of the biggest hospitals of ANZAC was located near the cemetery. This cemetery is famous with John Simpson, the man with the donkey, legend in your countries, this man. Do you know where is he from? He's from England. Who's from England? Anyone? Do you know the town South Shields, northeast of England? South Shields. He's from it for a wooden cross. When the commission members came here, they saw some of the wooden crosses were mixed. Some of them lost, so the bodies, the graves of the soldiers lost. Now it was impossible to identify them because when they died, their name tags taken by the officer. At that time they were just bodies, bones, skulls, skeletons. So what they do, they decide to put these headstones for the soldiers whose wooden cross were standing, or whose graves was found by commission, or whose names were written in the special war records. Sometimes they couldn't find the body, but the war record saying that he buried there. They put a headstone for him anywhere in the cemetery by writing "Valente buried in the cemetery." Maybe under his headstone, maybe near a stone, but over the same area. From 1919 to 1934, Allied completed almost all the cemeteries. So today, 31 cemeteries and memorials belong to Allied. Commonwealth War Graves Commission maintaining them, but there are Turkish gardeners who work for commission 5-6 times in a week. They are coming. First we may have, I will tell the stories. Here is Beach Cemetery. Firstly, something about the cemeteries. As you know, Gallipoli campaign finished in 1915, and the first grave commission came to Gallipoli in 1919. It means from 1915 to 1919, these graves were lying under the wooden crosses. But 4 years was a very long period and cleaning these areas. Today, which cemetery you go, you can see all of them like that in good condition, because also Turkish people paying enough attention and respect to your ancestors as their own ancestors. Here is Beach Cemetery. Because of its location near the main base, here is the south end of ANZAC Corps. Our next stop is ANZAC Corps. Because of its location near the main base, the graves represents a wide cross-section of servicemen. These who lost their lives on the beach. It also contains